Welcome to the Grassroots Army podcast. This platform is for common sense people looking for up-to-date, accurate, and truthful information without the hot garbage corporate media bias. The power of one can lead to the power of many. You never know what small act that you may say or do that may literally change the lives of millions tomorrow. And don't you ever think that you can't make a difference, because you can. Good morning, my fellow Michiganders. Good morning, my fellow Americans. Welcome to the Grassroots Army podcast. I am, of course, your host, former Michigan gubernatorial candidate Garrett Soldano, and I got to get the elephant out of the room immediately with the absolute clown show that we witnessed last night. Now, look, we all knew that Biden was not going to be the candidate for the Democrat Party. We knew this because everything that we've been seeing. And there's been a couple influencers out there who have been calling this out that, hey, look, after the debate, the corporate media is going to turn on President Biden and they're going to start the process of revealing their shadow candidate. That shadow candidate, who knows? It's up for debate. Rumors are floating around that it's Gavin Newsom, which I don't feel that it is because he's run California into the ground. Governor Whitmer is a strong possibility. That's the person that I predict that will be running, if not this election cycle, definitely the next election cycle. We got the clown governor out of Illinois, not even worth mentioning his name. Michelle Obama's been floating around, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to see. But they obviously are planning for this, especially with what happened last night. I mean, it was horrible. It was an absolute disgrace. And what's scarier than hell is this guy he's not in charge. We all know he's not in charge. He's being held up. But my goodness gracious, I would have loved to seen the reaction of Rachel Maddow last night as she was watching her candidate crash and burn miserably. Somebody should do a welfare check on her. And holy cow, they should probably add another charge on the other charges that they filed against President Trump for whooping an old man's butt last night, because that's what he did. And he didn't even have to try to do it. All President Trump had to do was sit back and let him talk, and it was revealed to everyone. So insane that we're in this position. So we're going to find out exactly what the Democrats have planned. So before that, introduce some of the highlights and some of the narrative that's going on with President Biden right now, we're going to have a gentleman on who's currently a police officer in Van Buren County, Jim Charon, who's running for the Kalamazoo County Sheriff. He's a candidate. And I want to bring on these candidates to give them not only some airtime, but have really important questions, because I really feel that a constitutional sheriff is probably one of the most important, if not most important, elected candidates that we can have in our republic, because they can hold the line against the state government. They can hold the line against the federal government. So it's very important that you get the right representation. So I've said this time and time again, find your constitutional sheriffs, get behind them, because these people literally will hold the line against governmental overreach, which all of us experienced in 2020. But before I bring him on and talk, I want to share with you some of the highlights. Now I heard that CNN is going to clip you and throw copyrights on you if share any of the footage from last night. I'm willing to share it. TikTok took me down again. I got back on, but with my 100,000 following, they deleted my account, banned me for no reason. I got a hold of them, got screenshots of the conversation, say, hey, what video did I post that banned me this time? Because they've been banning me for 2 weeks and I've been appealing the videos in one. Now they won't let me appeal. So they're not even responding anymore. So if you're on the TikToky, or the communist TikTok, as I call it, you can find our channel, our new channel. Instead of 100,000 followers, we have 200 and something right now. Hopefully that will grow. But it's the Grassroots Army. Search us up and then follow us, and I will continue to do my part in exposing the hot garbage. So we'll see if I get clipped for sharing information for you, which I'm willing to do because I think it's very important. So let's watch what President Trump's campaign released from the debate last night.
Folks, how are you? Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare, we're providing housing for black Americans. The impact on the choice, the idea that they're gonna. I'm proposing that everybody the millionaires pay 1%, 1%. So no one I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. And wants to get away with, get rid of the ability of Medicare for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America. No one was hurt. No one is real.
I can't even finish that. I mean, it's so bad. 1,000 trillionaires. I mean, it's he's mumbling. I mean, it's so embarrassing to watch. It's elder abuse. It's literally elder abuse. And for his family and his so-called inner circle to allow this guy to just go on and get embarrassed, I mean, it's just pure evil. I mean, who in their right mind? I mean, all the folks out there who have Trump derangement syndrome, right? That will say anybody but Trump. Look, I don't care if you don't like President Trump's personality. Just vote for the country, for goodness sakes. Vote for the person who's at least going to allow our country to succeed, because underneath this administration, if for some reason they win, it's over. This idea called America is over. And I can't wait to see how the Dems try to turn this on. I mean, they're already stating that he has a cold and everything else. And Karine Jean-Pierre, let's see what she has to say. Is this another cheap fake? Is what you just saw a cheap fake? So that's what they do, is Democrats lie, and then they run with the lie, and then the corporate media runs with the lie. And then several years later, we find out the truth. But then again, it's too late, because the gosh darn media cycle is so vicious. It's over, not even 24 hours anymore. It's 12. But it's going to be funny how they kind of spin this. You can't spin this. That is not a cheap fake. And the best thing President Trump did last night, well, actually what CNN did for him, was unplug his freaking mic, not allow him to interrupt the absolute dumpster fire of who he is right now as a person, which is obviously unfortunate. And so here is what some of the people were saying after the debate last night. Listen to this.
The whole time the split screen is killing Biden, because he's got his mouth open. He looks confused, doesn't know where he is. He's lost his train of thought at least twice in like disastrous shape. Those are going to be played 1 billion times in viral video after viral video. This is an epic disaster. I see people online saying, well, okay, that answer wasn't so bad. No, it doesn't. Any particular answer doesn't matter at all. This thing is over. He looks like he's barely surviving. I don't mean the debate, I mean life. And so there's no person that has a single brain cell left in their head who thinks that Joe Biden is the best candidate to take on Donald Trump. You would have to be even crazier than Donald Trump to think that. This thing is over. I'll guarantee you this. I would bet show me a Democratic politician and I will bet them any amount of money that Joe Biden's going to lose this election if he's the candidate. It's a guaranteed loss. You're telling me this is the most important election of our lifetimes? You're telling me that democracy's on the line, and you're gonna put on a guy who can't even talk, who can't even sit there and look normal. This thing's a bloodbath. He's gonna get annihilated. That is, okay, now the Democrats have to decide. Are they happy to lose? Are they willing to lose? Because this is a guaranteed loss.
This is so much worse than my worst nightmares of what it could be like in every way. The visual stuff is obvious. The staring off, the looking down, it looks terrible. His voice is so utterly weak and feeble. And honestly, like that immediately hits you when you see him, but what he says and what he doesn't say on the most important core issues of the election are even worse. Trump won on abortion in the debate. Trump comes out of the January 6th stuff looking fine. He comes out of the criminal conviction stuff looking fine.
So when you have Dems freaking out, it's over. I mean, you could see CNN. I mean, even when you watch the debate and you've seen the moderators' reactions, like they were mortified. They truly were. You could tell in their eyes, they were just trying to prop them up and saying, 83 more seconds, sir. 45 more seconds, sir. I mean, they did everything that they could to prop up this weekend at Bernie's president, right? That's what they did. And it still failed miserably. Utter embarrassment. So we'll see. There's no way the Dems are going to run Biden. There's no way. Who is the shadow candidate that they're going to try to prop up? Time will tell. That is for sure. And so moving on, which I think is very important, is to talk about constitutional sheriffs. And I'm going to start having some candidates on who are running for constitutional, or actually the county sheriffs, okay, who I firmly believe that have to be constitutional sheriffs, especially for everything that we went on during the pandemic and the lockdowns and the mandates. We want folks who are going to stand by that little piece of paper called the Constitution. And I'm bringing on a gentleman right now, Officer Jim Charon from Van Buren County, who is running for Kalamazoo Sheriff in Kalamazoo County. Welcome, sir. Thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Thank you, sir.
So obviously, before we get into your race, let's talk about the utter disaster that I just showed on the show here. What are your thoughts by what happened last night? What's your take on this, Jim?
I completely agree with everything that you said. It's unfortunate that his inner circle has not stepped in to say, Dad, we need to settle down. You know, they need to kind of step up and say mentally there is something going on and he should not be running. They should do that. So his inner circle has definitely failed him.
Yeah, I mean, just like everybody that I'm seeing stating, you know, it's elder abuse. It really is. And it's, you know, even though the Dems, the progressive movement is just, they're pushing a narrative. There's no doubt about it. But, you know, for them just to prop up this guy and to allow him to go on national TV, global, right? Everybody watched last night's debate. I mean, it's just, it's sad. It truly, truly is. So let's move on to your race. You're running for sheriff, obviously in Kalamazoo County, my county, which tends to be a blue county. Why did you pick Kalamazoo? Are you from the area? You know, what made you say, you know what, I need to be the sheriff of Kalamazoo County?
Yeah, so I've lived in Kalamazoo County for 18, 19 years now. I've worked in Van Buren during that time. And I kind of see what we're able to do in Van Buren County. It's obviously a smaller county, more rural county. And I see what's going on in law enforcement in the bigger county of Kalamazoo. I think some of the things that start out small are very important to get into Kalamazoo. Some positive leadership, some positive policing. That community policing that we're able to do over here needs to expand 10 times over there. But it starts with positive leadership. And some of the leadership in Kalamazoo hasn't been great. And so I want to change that. And I think Kalamazoo needs that change to progress law enforcement into a positive light.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you just hit on with community policing. You know, to be very effective as a police officer, you need to be involved with the community. The community's got to trust you. And God bless you, sir, for even being an officer in today's climate. Obviously, you've been in the force, you said, since 2005?
2006, I started in Van Buren.
2006. And so you've obviously, how you started is not the culture of what being a police officer is now. I mean, it's a whole different ball game, especially when you have a certain group of people that constantly are attacking you guys, calling for defunding the police. And what I've talked about over the last couple of days is this kind of defund the police movement has evolved. And basically, we all live in Gotham City and we do not have a Batman. I mean, crime is out of control right now. And one of the things that's on everyone's minds right now is the illegal immigrants that have flooded our border, the millions upon millions of illegals. Now, not all these folks are bad. They're obviously coming in here to find the American dream, which we all can respect. But you have to vet these folks because we know that there are some evil, bad actors amongst the over 13 million that have come in over the last 4 years. And I know Van Buren County, I actually listened to your sheriff talk with President Trump when President Trump came to Grand Rapids a couple months ago, and he was talking about how many illegal immigrants were in the county jail. Are you guys currently having that problem?
We've always dealt with a large migrant population here. We have a lot of farmland. And so we've always, my entire career, I've dealt with a large migrant population. The majority of them don't commit crimes, but the shift has been that some of these are now tied, some of these illegal immigrants are now tied to cartels. And that's the biggest change here. And that's the problem that you're having with the drugs and everything else. We used to take care of meth labs. drugs, meth is so cheap now that it's brought across the border. They're no longer cooking meth. They can just buy it cheaper because of the cartels.
So yeah, and that's what people don't understand. We're talking about rural America now. These problems aren't in Los Angeles and New York. I mean, they are in those cities, but now it's expanding everywhere. I mean, they've infiltrated, every single area of our beloved country, which is scary. Like, people aren't safe like they were. They truly aren't. And so we have to have the right representation now. And that's why it's so important to have folks like yourself running for office. So obviously, if you've been following me, I've been pretty passionate about the unconstitutional lockdowns and the mandates. And you probably saw me stand up and go around the state and lead the petition that took away her executive powers, the emergency powers, to make sure that no governor can do this again. So we have to have a conversation to make sure, that we're getting the right representation, especially in counties, because constitutional sheriffs are probably the most important position or elected official that we could have. So let's rewind back. Let's say you are the sheriff of Kalamazoo County, and during these lockdowns when they were shutting down businesses, and we have folks like Marlena who stood up, right? We have Carl the barber. What would you have done in those situations when the federal and state government, and then the health department, when she weaponized the health department, would come in and try to close these folks down? What would your role be in that situation? Would you enforce those unconstitutional mandates or not?
The simple answer is no. But I can tell you what we did over here is we took that information that the federal government's given us, and we said, here's the information. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. That's your choice. We never forced it on anybody. There was a balance that you had to play, because now the health department in OSHA started trying to find these companies and trying to shut them down. What we did is, we took that information and said, you do what you want with it. Okay, so we're not forcing people down. A perfect example of what we did compared to what Kalamazoo did was there was a charity golf outing. That golf outing moved from Kalamazoo because they were told, if you have this golf outing, we're going to write you tickets. So they moved it. They called Van Buren and they said, can we have it here? And we said, sure, go ahead. And we left them alone. They knew the information. If they said, this is the information and this scares us, that's on them. But we allowed them to have it. And to this day, that charity golf outing is still held in Van Buren.
What charity golf outing was it? Do you mind if I ask?
I don't want to out them, but
okay, no, I won't. No, we'll keep it. Well, you know who you are, and good for you, charity golf outing. I probably sponsored the gosh darn thing, that's for sure. So a big thing right now in the state of Michigan is obviously red flag laws. And we have to talk about this because, look, red flag laws on paper look like common sense. Obviously, we don't want people who are mentally disturbed, schizophrenic, to have access to guns because they can be dangerous, right? But what's concerning to a lot of us who have this thing called common sense is anyone can turn you in, right? And they can come in and basically, if they say that guy's mentally disturbed, then they're going to come in, they're going to take away your Second Amendment. And then, yes, you're going to get your day in court. But unfortunately, the Democrat Party has infiltrated the judicial system. And we now have seen and have proof that these judges are not ruling on the Constitution. They are ruling on their political beliefs, which is wrong. So you get your day in court, and then the judge says, hey, yeah, you're mentally disturbed. And they take away your Second Amendment. As a pro-Second Amendment person who stands up for the Second Amendment, that is concerning to me because that very thing happened to me. Somebody turned me in to be a radical right-wing extremist, and the FBI came knocking at my door and had a nice little conversation with me. And if they would have thought that I would have been a threat, they could have came in and stripped me of my Second Amendment, which is concerning for a lot of Americans, okay? So if, let's say, the federal government or the United Nations declare a state of emergency, right? A state of emergency that people with guns are very, very dangerous. And they started implementing a door-to-door gun confiscation in your jurisdiction, which would be Kalamazoo County when you win in November. What would you do?
We would not be going door to door. That is just when you sit there and you actually play that out in your head, what do you think is going to happen from the citizens that say, I have the right, these are my constitutional rights. And now you have somebody, whether it's the governor, our governor now, that wants to push this and say, you have to do this. the sheriffs, I think, are going to drive progress in Michigan. It's not going to be the governor or the state police that drive law enforcement progress. It's the 83 sheriffs in Michigan that are going to drive this. They're going to hold that line to make sure that just asinine things don't happen. And this is one of those where it's, if they said go door to door, take all the guns, it's just asinine. It's just stupid. It can't be done. And I think if the Democrats would sit there and realize that and say, do we need to do this? I think the common sense answer is absolutely not. And so, no, we would not be going door to door to take anybody's gun.
So let me ask you this question. Obviously, I probably already know the answer, but should the federal government ever come into your county and serve warrants and make arrests without informing you first?
No, they shouldn't. There should be that working relationship with the federal government and local sheriff's office. That relationship should exist. It shouldn't be so broke down that they want to do stuff that's unconstitutional, or they think there's going to be that conflict with the local sheriff.
And there's some things going on throughout the country right now. I think in Pennsylvania and some other states, if I recall, especially with raiding farms for producing raw milk, right? So you have these governmental agencies that are basically coming in and shutting them down. And if that starts, especially in Kalamazoo County, it's not as rural as Van Buren, obviously, but there are farms and stuff. What if that starts to happen, that the federal government starts to come in and starts taking down these farmers, right, that are just trying to distribute raw milk?
Yeah. And I think, again, you'd have to have that conversation with the federal government and federal agents that decide to come in and say, this is not the way we're going to operate within, Van Buren, Kalamazoo, or any other county in Michigan. And I think that conversation has to happen. It's, if you could sit there and look at them and say, if we can settle the drug problem, let's start there. But the federal government, for whatever reason, the last 4 to 6 years has decided they're going to, ban ivermectin and things like that, where it's just like, this is not where we need to be as a country. And I think voters need to stand up and make sure that they're conscious of who they're voting for and what they stand for. And I think that's important, so that the federal government doesn't do things like this. This is, confiscating raw milk that people want is just another one of those asinine things that they shouldn't be doing.
No, I think it creates a domino effect. You hit the nail on the head. And I think a lot of people don't understand how important having the right representation as a constitutional sheriff in your county. I mean, you are pretty much one of the most powerful people in elected office, because you have the right to defend that piece of paper called the Constitution. So elections have consequences. It truly does. And Jim, you have a rich history and rich background in law enforcement, correct?
That's right. I have 5 brothers and a sister, and three of us are involved in law enforcement. I have a brother that actually works in Kalamazoo County. I have a brother that works in Ione County. And my dad was a state trooper, retired as a captain after 34 years. He passed away about 10 years ago. But it's all we've known, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said 5 brothers and 1 sister?
Yep. Sister's the youngest too. So.
Well, I tell you what, I bet she's the toughest out of the bunch when she is the youngest of having 5 older brothers, especially 3 of them being in law enforcement. That's for sure.
Yeah, her boyfriends and dates went well at our house. So.
I bet so. Now I want to move on to culture, and some other things that are happening that I heard of in Kalamazoo County with DEI and some other things that are being said. Is the culture of being a police officer is obviously very different from when you started, especially going through 2020 and all the hate that you guys received. And, I have a very small background in law enforcement. Obviously, we talked about I went to the police academy, but people don't understand how tough it is and the reaction time that you have to make a life and death situation and not only protect you, but your fellow officers in the public. It's so tough, and it's easy to analyze game film and criticize, but having that culture of being a police officer and having the public scared of police officers in Kalamazoo County is obviously very different from Van Buren. So what are your plans to kind of bridge that gap? I know that you said community policing, But what does that entail when, somebody that's in the middle or even Democrat hears you say that? Well, what does that mean?
Yeah, so it starts with positive leadership, and that trickles down to positive policing, and then the positive community. The positive community is the outcome of the first two. And if you can have a positive leader, you start to have your troops, the deputies, kind of work in positive policing. An example that I like to use is when one of our deputies pulled a guy over for speeding, gave him the ticket, and then the guy comes to the sheriff's office. I think he's coming to make a complaint, but he actually bought a gift card, and he was happy because he was treated so nice by the cop. He got a ticket. The cop did his job, but he was treated so nice. So you start to bridge that gap by having positive interactions, consistent positive interactions. Over my 18 years, we've arrested a lot of people, and you always need to treat them with respect. You can arrest them, do your job, and still treat them with respect. And I think that goes a long way when it's done on a consistent basis. And I think the community sees, especially sheriff's offices, in a different light, because, not only do you arrest them, those are the same deputies that now you're spending time in jail with. And I think if that's done all the way through their court process, then you can have that positive. It's a negative for their life, but it's a positive impact, And so on the positive side of policing, when you don't make an arrest, we just need to be there in uniform to show that we're normal people. And I think if you can do that on a consistent basis and get into the communities and just be normal in a positive way, I think that goes a long way. And that's the core. You can do a whole bunch of things in positive policing, but that's the core of it, is by treating people with respect and dignity on a consistent basis. Never having those moments where cops are saying stupid things that they shouldn't be saying, and then it goes viral. Those are the things that we can't do, and we have to be conscious of those all the time. The police officers are stressed constantly because it's never ending for them. And with, YouTube and everything else, it's played over and over and over again for them when they do mess up. They're human, they're going to mess up, but we want to make sure that that's minimal, and that we're always, if we mess up, at least we've messed up with dignity and respect for that person.
Wow. I mean, what you just said, great response, but also, it's like almost a transparency issue. I never heard it talked about on how you just did it with, basically, hey, we're going to make mistakes, but you make mistakes, you have dignity with it, you be transparent. And I think that's what people want is that transparency, because obviously in the past people have been burned, and things have happened, and there's been cover-ups and everything else. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done with community policing, with infiltrating the communities and really letting them know that, hey, you're behind them. You got to follow the law. If you break the law, there's going to be consequences. As I tell my kids, there's wisdom and consequences, and you got to learn from your consequences. So you have the wisdom to go forward in life in the future. That is for sure. What do you think then is your primary role as a sheriff?
Well, you're as the sheriff, you're the lead law enforcement officer for the entire county. So you're kind of setting the tone of how policing is accomplished within that county. Now, in Kalamazoo, you have a lot of large departments. Kalamazoo City Police, very large department, but you can work with them and set that tone. If you as a sheriff say, I'm not allowing you to lodge any of these people for any of these offenses, that sets a tone for that department where they can't arrest that. They can't solve that problem on the street. If you work with them and say, yes, doors are open, bring them in, you start to set that tone for all law enforcement in your area. And I think that's very important for the sheriff to be out there, be a positive leadership, and work with all of those agencies in the community, because the community wants to be safe. They want law enforcement. They just want it done respectfully and positively. And I think that's very important for the sheriff to do that.
Yeah, I would agree 100% with that. People want to be safe. People want to be able to go to the grocery store. People want their kids to go to school and be safe. I mean, I think safety is a big concern for a lot of people that really was kind of in the back seat on some things. Obviously, bad things happen all the time in our country, but it seems like it's starting to be consistently bad in a lot of areas. And, you have to keep your head on a swivel. As our drill instructor once told us, stay alert, stay alive. That is for sure. Officer Charon, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your wisdom, your experience, your vision for Kalamazoo County. And hey, sir, I'm going to let you know right now, you have my vote. And I urge everyone in Kalamazoo County to spread the word about this great man so we can get him in the office, because I really, truly believe we need positive change in Kalamazoo County. And I think, sir, you are the man to get it done.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
But have a great day, and keep at it, my man. I know how campaigning is, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Wow, what a great interview. And he has my 100% support, that is for sure. Really loved a lot of his answers, especially the emphasis on community policing, which I think is huge, not only in Kalamazoo County, but also on the north side of Kalamazoo. I really believe that police officers should be engaged in those communities to build relationships with people and work together to keep those communities safe. To me, that's just common sense. That is for sure. So I will continue to have these folks on, because I really believe we need to put a spotlight on sheriffs, especially sheriffs who have a Constitution background, which is huge. And so I think on Monday, I'm going to have Hillsdale County Sheriff candidate John Rutan, which I've already posted a video that he has my 100% support on how he dealt with the pandemic, standing up. He's very personable. So on Monday, John will be coming on to share his wisdom, and I'm excited and honored to have him on. So I'll continue to do my part, is give you up-to-date, accurate, and truthful information. So folks, again, if you're on the TikTok, I was banned for the third time, or second or third time. I'm losing track. But if you're on TikTok, follow us at the Grassroots Army, because I will continue to push the envelope over there, because it's my job to break through the algorithms to give the people the truth. All right. So God bless you. God bless the state of Michigan, of course, and always God bless these United States. Until next.